our live webinar session. Requesting our host, Dr. Vinayak Desai, sir, to proceed further session. Vinayak Desai, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jignesh. Good evening, respected doctors. Welcome everybody to the fifth webinar of our Daisar Medical Association. In our day-to-day practice, we are sometimes in a dicey situation when the TSH is between 6 to 8. We don't know whether to start the treatment or investigate more. For all the answers and update, we have with us today leading endocrinologist from Daisar Borivali, Dr. Ameya Joshi sir. To moderate the session, we have Dr. Jiten Mehta sir, leading consulting physician from Borivali East. Vote of thanks will become Dr. Wade sir. Today's CM is sponsored by GSK Ingenium Division. Its products are Eltroxin, Septum, CCM. To introduce our speaker, Dr. Ameya Joshi sir, I call upon Dr. Prasad Dalvi. Dr. Prasad Dalvi, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vinayak sir. Good evening, friends. Myself, Dr. Prasad Dalvi, committee member of Daisar Medical Association, introducing our today's speaker, Dr. Ameya Joshi, MD Medicine, DM Endocrine. He is consultant endocrinologist having diabetes and endocrine clinics in Borivali West and Bhinder East. He is also consultant endocrinologist at Bhaktivedanta Hospital and Research Institute, Mira Road, Karuna Hospital and Cardinal Gracious Hospital. He is a recipient of IDF Young Scholar Grant. He is also awarded as Best Reviewer for Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2016. He has more than 30 publications in international and national journals. He is also executive member of Indian Society of Bone Mineral Research. He will be today giving lecture on hypothyroidism in general practice. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Ameya Joshi, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dalvi, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Vinayak Desai, sir, and the Daisar Medical Association. And I would like to express gratitude to all of you because I know everybody probably has been against us in this difficult time. Let it be public, let it be political will, or let it be bureaucracy. But DMA has stood united and tall. So I think everybody needs a pat on their back. Each one of us have supported each other. We stood with each other. And I think I would also thank GSK for sponsoring us for this web interaction. I have kept my talk simple so that each and every practitioner from each and every specialty should get something out of it. There are people whom I could see in the list who know much about thyroid, and if there are any queries from anyone either in the session or later on, happy to take them. But to begin, we must understand that thyroid disorders are also a pandemic. Nobody has been spared. 25% of females and 2 to 5% of males have some degree of thyroid dysfunction. Our sponsors have been GSK, whose leading brand Eltroxin we all are acquainted with. Across ages, we have seen thyroid diseases, and the beauty is that same report at different ages has different meaning. And so we will be taking you through the report at different ages. I must also tell you that we see an overdiagnosis of thyroid disorder when just some simple value which does not carry any significance is given treatment. And at the same time, there are many times where a simple clinical condition due to thyroid goes on being missed. And we recently had a hospitalization due to myxedema coma. Person was being investigated for weakness and many setups, but thyroid function was not paid attention to. Before that, I would like to tell you that when you start investigating, always keep in mind what you have, what you want to recognize. Because if you are trying to diagnose hypothyroidism, simple TSH may be sufficient. But if you are suspecting hyperthyroidism, a simple reading of low TSH gives very incomplete information, and a T3, T4 TSH does so much to you, because the most common thing that we are seeing is lot of thyroiditis in this COVID era. What is also important is that when you get an unexpected result, it is go back to the clinical examination and order additional investigations. Obviously, you should examine the patient before you ask for a thyroid function test. But these are the 6 or 7 group of people who, if they come to your OPD, irrespective of speciality, please remember that whether they show symptom of thyroid disease or not, please get their thyroid function done, because their problem can be solved by treating the thyroid disease. Like patients with infertility, patients who are pregnant, each one needs a thyroid function. All newborns need to get a thyroid function done. Females with menstrual disorder. I think what is commonly missed in this is postmenopausal females, where thyroid function is not done every 5 years as recommended. And in patients with other autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, we must get thyroid function done at least once in a year or two. There are certain medications like lithium, amiodarone, and if they are on, thyroid function should be done. Any patient with depression, osteoporosis, a thyroid function must be done. Also, there are many a times where I get a phone call saying, oh, my patient is actually having a normal thyroid report, but he looks hypothyroid, you know. My experience says, I think everything respected, but unless you have a evidence to treat hypothyroidism, and there are reasons when we treat a normal thyroid report also, and I'll come to them, but do not only treat based on experience, get an evidence to treat. Do not indiscriminately start thyroid test. I'll come to one of those situations also. And clinical features like elevated muscle enzymes or reflex relaxation time or a simply high cholesterol level, which at some point of time had received thyroid treatment, it is always better that you document an abnormality. So before we look at the reports of thyroid, it is the hypothalamus that produces TRH, which makes the pituitary produce TSH. And finally, it makes the thyroid gland produce T4 and T3. T4 and T3 are hormones of metabolism. That means they increase the speed with which your body functions. And excess production will lead to sweating, palpitations, weight loss, hyperdefecation. And reduced production will lead to slowing, that is the clinical features of hypothyroidism. And this is how we get the reports. So TSH is the teacher and T3, T4 are the students. When T3, T4 are overproduced or they are studying well, the TSH will go down. And when T3, T4 is going down, the TSH rises. You must remember that before a student fails, the teacher shouts from the bottom of her heart. And so before the T3, T4 goes down, the TSH rises and pushes the thyroid gland to function normally. And so in this particular situation where many patients say, sir, what T3, T4 is normal hai, but TSH is high, we need to tell them that you still need supplementation. There is a peculiar condition where you get a low to normal TSH and a low T4, which is called as central hypothyroidism. That is due to pituitary problem. We'll just have a minute of discussion on that. And these are the various tests available to us. I think we have excellent laboratories in the vicinity which can match any quality lab, and all the tests are done at 5 minutes distance from each and every clinic in Dahisar and Borivali. Like, let it be a thyroid function, let it be thyroid antibodies, let it be thyroid ultrasound or a CT scan. What we do not have in the vicinity and need at least 5-7 kilometers of a distance travel is technetium scan, which is not in today's topic because we are not discussing hyperthyroidism. There is always a query that should we do a T3 and T4 or should we do a free T3 and free T4? In 98% of the cases, T3, T4 is sufficient, but only in 2% of the cases you need free T3 and free T4. These are typically the situations when the person is sick or there is a thyroxine binding globulin abnormality. Most of the Western textbooks do not recommend free T3 and free T4. The reason is the cost is 7 to 8 times higher in Western countries. But we are fortunate enough that all the labs in our vicinity are actually doing free T3, free T4 for us at less than 700 rupees. All free T3, free T4 TSH is available in good quality assays and analyzers. And so I think it's not wrong also to get a FT3, FT4 TSH, because our patients do not like a second visit and second test. I think we should remember that, which is more common in Western population. There are thyroid antibodies, and you should remember the one that is marked in dark. And this is the test you should do. Sir pointed out to a situation when the TSH is 5 to 8, T3, T4 is normal, and you are worried whether I should be treating or not treating. You should treat that person when the TPO antibody is positive. So TSH between 5 to 8, treat if TPO antibody is positive. That is one of the indications and additional test. There is something called as anti-TG antibodies, which we do mainly in malignancy patients and some patients of hypothyroidism and goiter. And there are TSH receptor antibodies, which are mainly done in hyperthyroidism. So this is our today's main stream of discussion, that is hypothyroidism or a reduced thyroid gland function. And why does this happen? Because the patient asks that, doctor, why is my thyroid gland functioning less? And we tell them that the most common reason is autoimmunity. That means your own body is producing antibodies that tends to destroy your own gland. And which is that antibody? That is a TPO antibody that continues to destroy the thyroid, and positive antibody is an indication to treat. There are rare patients who had a thyroid surgery, who had got a thyroid irradiated or thyroid infection like subacute thyroiditis. There is a birth defect in the thyroid called as congenital hypothyroidism, where the thyroid gland is either absent or not functioning properly. Iodine deficiency, we no longer see that commonly, but is one of the known cause. So are the other medications. And let us take a glimpse of the thyroid reports that you have ordered, you have suspected. And this is how a normal thyroid report looks. A T3, T4 that is normal, and TSH between 0.2 to 3. Now, this is a typically commonest thyroid report abnormality seen of subclinical hypothyroidism. T3, T4 normal, TSH slightly high. This again is a clear-cut situation where T3 and T4 is normal, but the TSH is T3 and T4 is low and the TSH is very high. Again, clear-cut picture of overt hypothyroidism which needs treatment. And this is the last situation where you get a weird report. The T3 is low, T4 is low, and the TSH is inappropriately normal. When T3, T4 is going down, I expect the TSH to go high. And when it does not go high, that problem is called as central hypothyroidism. Now, what happens when you get a normal T3, normal T4 and a normal, when you get a low T3, low T4 and a normal TSH? You get a free T3 and free T4. And if your free T3, free T4 is normal and TSH is normal, you leave the case there. But when your free T3 is low, when your free T4 is low and the TSH is normal, that is a report of central hypothyroidism, and you need to look at the pituitary gland in that particular case. Just remember one thing, low T3, low T4 and a normal TSH is a report which needs an expert evaluation and pituitary assessment. So these are the symptoms of hypothyroidism. And each and every patient coming to the OPD has these symptoms like tiredness, fatigue, weakness, hair loss, poor concentration, constipation, weight gain, sometimes menstrual irregularities. And what we see is dry skin, puffy face, hair loss, brittle nails. Now, let me tell you some hard signs that you can make out while examining, and you should be very, very wary in those situations. You can clearly make out bradycardia. You can clearly make out isolated diastolic hypertension. You can make out delayed tendon reflexes, edema, and if those are present, or a goiter, then these 4 or 5 things are quite hard indicators that you strongly consider thyroid function testing. Otherwise, the symptoms are so weird, like tiredness, fatigue, lethargy, constipation, weight gain, that practically every person coming to the OPD will have them. And in all prudency, we have a luxury of getting thyroid function test at an economical price. If not done in last 1 year, it's better to get it done actually. Now, this is one of the symptoms which I would like to highlight, that any patient with obesity must get a thyroid function done. But because of weight gain also, some increase in TSH can happen. And if you get a patient who has got a normal T3, normal T4, but the TSH that is 6 or 7, it is actually not that you must treat. On the contrary, the TSH could have increased because of the weight and the insulin resistance. And such patients, the TSH may normalize after weight loss. The second mistake is never give a patient a hope that if you treat this TSH of 6 or 7, he will reduce weight. Because I must assure you that the patient is not going to reduce weight because of treating a TSH of 6 or 7. And on the contrary, he will come back and say that you have not told me right. So not all obese patients are hypothyroid. Mild increase in TSH does not indicate that obesity is due to hypothyroidism. Even due to severe hypothyroidism, you can expect 3 to 4 kgs weight loss, not more than that. And remember this cartoon, that you need to modify diet, encourage exercise, and not blame thyroid unnecessarily for the weight gain. Now, this is one of the representative case of an 80-year-old lady who came with fatigue and lethargy. She had osteopenia, excess sleepiness, and a BMI of 31. She was overweight also, and her TSH was 7.1. And we were faced with a dilemma whether we should be treating her or not treating her. And here comes the role of indications of treatment of subclinical hypothyroidism. You should always remember that an elderly patient should not be treated or treated only if you have a strong evidence. If the person has negative TPO antibody and not pregnant, do not treat subclinical hypothyroidism. Only obesity is not an indication to treat subclinical hypothyroidism. But if somebody is pregnant or planning pregnancy, you must treat. If TPO antibodies are positive, you must treat. And in a young adult with goiter, you must treat subclinical hypothyroidism because it can help in improving pregnancy outcomes. It can help reduce goiter, and it can stabilize underlying autoimmunity in those who are TPO positive. Now, let us try to look at the same report. Normal free T4, slightly raised TSH in a 10-week pregnant lady. So in the first case, it was an elderly lady, no goiter, with some osteoporosis. You are not going to treat her because she is elderly. Treatment may worsen her osteoporosis and cardiac condition. But here I am dealing with a young lady with a TSH of 7.1. Same report, only the patient profile is different. And I will waste no time in writing her a prescription of hypothyroidism. And in next 2 minutes, I'll take you to what happens in pregnancy. Pregnancy and hypothyroidism is a different topic. But what happens in pregnancy is the T3 and T4 increases by 50%. So if your normal T4 is 4 to 12, in pregnancy, it becomes 6 to 18 approximately. So you can get a T3, T4 that is high and a TSH normal in pregnancy. And what happens to TSH? Remember that placenta produces HCG and HCG reduces the TSH. So TSH level drops down during pregnancy to come below 2.5 in first trimester and below 3 in second and third trimester. We are very much worried about hypothyroidism in pregnancy because it can cause anemia, pregnancy-induced hypertension, congestive cardiac failure, gestational hypertension, postpartum depression, lactation problems, and also gestational diabetes chances are increased. But the most worrisome is miscarriage and impaired brain development. Every patient who is pregnant and gets a bad thyroid report will ask, doctor, can I get miscarriage? Will my baby's brain development be affected? And you must remember that hypothyroidism in a mother will not cause mental retardation in a child. Remember this statement again. Hypothyroidism in mother will not cause mental retardation in child. The child can have slight reduction in intellectual capacity. That means he may lack some capacity to solve complex problems like complex mathematics and all, but he will be otherwise a normal child who can live a normal life but lacks some complex intellectual capacities. And so only hypothyroidism in mother is not an indication for advising abortion termination of pregnancy also. It is only if the mother's health is getting affected because of hypothyroidism, like she has got severe anemia, she has got severe hypothyroidism is contributory, then only you can advise termination. And so let us try to look at this summary chart of what you will do if a pregnant lady comes with hypothyroidism. So let us divide in between TSH above 4 and below 4. And you will treat all pregnant ladies with TSH above 4. And if the patient is hypothyroid and on a dose, you will increase the dose to get the TSH level below 4. Now above 4 are treated. Let us come down to the range below 4. And then we divide into below 2.5 and 2.5 to 4. So if the TSH level in pregnancy is between 2.5 and 4, you do a TPO antibody. And if the TPO antibody is positive, you treat a level between 2.5 to 4. If the TPO antibody is negative, you do not treat a level of TSH between 2.5 to 4 in pregnancy. I repeat, if the pregnant lady has a TSH between 2.5 to 4, treat if the TPO antibody is positive, do not treat if the TPO antibody is negative. There is one curious recommendation though, that even if the TSH level is below 2.5, but some lady had a miscarriage, or some lady is trying for pregnancy and not getting conceived. Say somebody who is trying for pregnancy has not conceived and the TSH level is 2. You are not getting any cause why she is not conceiving, and you do a TPO antibody and you find that it is positive. Even if the TSH is 2, because the TPO antibody is positive, you will end up treating that infertile lady and hope that it will improve chances of conception. So what we conclude for pregnancy is TSH level should be below 2.5. All overt and subclinical cases need treatment during pregnancy. If you get thyroid antibodies, they increase miscarriages. And treatment, even with a normal thyroid report, in somebody who is planning pregnancy, can help. So let us try to see the conditions in the world where you might actually have a normal thyroid report but still end up treating. And these are the patients who have got miscarriage or infertility. Anybody with goiter with a normal thyroid report must be treated. And there are patients with urticaria or other autoimmune diseases where even if you get a TSH of 2, but the TPO antibody is positive, actually treating such patients has been proven to be helpful. And so I must repeat that any patient who has got a positive TPO antibody in subclinical hypothyroidism needs treatment. Any patient with pregnancy needs treatment. Any patient with goiter, even with a normal TSH, needs treatment. So how do we treat? We have seen subclinical hypothyroidism, we have seen overt hypothyroidism, we have seen pregnant patients. You treat with T4 because your body is naturally capable of converting T4 to T3. And so you must give a physiological dose of T4. If you give T3, you are more likely to give an overdose and patient can become toxic. In healthy young adults, replacement dose can be started. So if you get a TSH above 30 in a young patient, you can start with a full replacement dose. But if you have an elderly with a TSH of 100 also, start with a full dose of 75 or 100. Start with 12.5, increase gradually, and try to get the TSH below 2.5 or maybe 0.1 to 3 range. The patient can be followed up at 2 to 3 months. Do not do a test once every 2 weeks because the TSH doesn't stabilize, and dose should be increased every 6 to 12 weeks based on the follow-up. I repeat, young patient, very high TSH, full replacement dose. Young patient with mildly high TSH or somebody who is elderly, even with a very high TSH, start with a small dose. Test every 6 to 12 weeks, and then once the TSH is reassessed, you can gradually increase the dose. I think there is some echo coming. If somebody can mute them.
Hello, sir. Mute your microphone, please. Request everyone, mute your microphone, please. Sorry, sir.
So our goal is to provide the resolution of patient's symptoms, to achieve normalization of TSH, and to avoid further treatment, especially in the elderly. So we want to treat, we want to achieve a normal level, but prevent over treatment. And this is a simple algorithm. We will not discuss in young patients because we need to start a full dose. But in elderly, you start with a 12.5 to 25 microgram, step up the dose gradually, and try to achieve a normal level. We need to get the TSH level normal. We need to test once every 6 to 8 weeks and try to achieve a normal thyroid function test. We saw about adults, we saw about pregnant ladies, and we also saw about subclinical hypothyroidism. Let us spare a minute for the newborn. In all newborns at cord blood, or if you have missed the cord blood opportunity, day 2 to day 4, you should get a free T4 and TSH done. And do not worry for a TSH level 10 to 15. In children, TSH more than 30 is considered abnormal. And if the child is sick, TSH more than 10 is considered abnormal. And even best clinicians miss 70% of the cases, and so screening is a must in all newborns. Each and every newborn.
Sir, wait for 1 minute, sir.
No TSH, no thyroid.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So all newborns must be screened for hypothyroidism, and best clinicians miss 70% of the cases. And so screening for hypothyroidism is mandatory in all the newborns. What is important is that if you do not screen a newborn, and if you say that, okay, the child is too small, the mother also says, don't take the blood of my child. And if you defer it by 4 to 6 weeks, that is more dangerous, because the more delay you do in treating hypothyroidism in a newborn, if it is there, and 1 in 2000 newborns does have hypothyroidism congenitally, the more are the chances that the child will have some neurodevelopmental delay. Now there is another very delicate group, that is children and adolescents. And you do not screen every child for thyroid as you screen many of the adults. But any child who is short, not gaining height, any child who is obese or gaining weight, anyone with goiter, anyone with developmental problems, anybody with scholastic backwardness, and anybody with delayed or irregular menses actually needs to be screened. So any child with these 6 features, short stature, weight gain, goiter, developmental problems, scholastic backwardness, and sometimes adolescent girls with irregular menses, they need to be screened. Whenever you treat children, you must see that not only is the thyroid function normal, but the child is growing well. Because even if the thyroid function is normal, but child is not growing well, you need to assess other conditions associated and also look at the child's bone age. So autoimmune thyroid disease is the commonest cause of goiter in adolescents and children. They need assessment. Patients with diabetes and celiac disease are much more common to have hypothyroidism. And in children, hypothyroidism may not be permanent. Like we counsel all adults कि ये permanent बीमारी है. Children, it is not permanent. And I'll come back to 2 cases taken in 2 minutes so that some clinical pulse come out of them, and then we conclude. So we have a 36-year-old lady who came with severe hypothyroidism, TSH of 60 or more. She started on thyroxine 100 micrograms. Now she comes after 2 months and the TSH is still 55. I shout at her, I scold her, the relatives also shout at her, but they ensure that next time they give her the tablet and she takes the tablet regularly and she again comes back. I have also increased the dose, but the TSH is still high. I again increase the dose and the TSH again continues to be high. Now I am puzzled what is going wrong. And then I check her tablets. Then I see her other reports and I find out that her hemoglobin is also 9.5. We do further testing and find that she is celiac autoimmunity positive or gluten sensitive. There are 2 angles to it. Any patient who is not getting control despite proper treatment, do celiac screening. But at the same time, there are many thyroid patients who come and say, sir, हमको gluten sensitivity है. And they restrict wheat themselves. You tell them that you do your gluten sensitivity test. It's easily available. And if that is normal, then don't restrict gluten. It's not going to help you. So when you find that you are treating hypothyroidism, but the patient's TSH is not coming down, you must ensure that the tablet is being taken properly. You instruct properly. See the tablet. Sometimes one patient got thyroxine tablet which had 3-4 colors, and she said that she used to keep it in the window, and window sun used to come, so the tablet got denatured, because sometimes she used to keep the tablet open also. And whenever you do not find anything wrong with the patient, try to look at other conditions that might interfere with digestion. The last clinical scenario is somebody comes with an acute emergency. Pre-operative checkup is done. TSH is high. What should be done? Whether we should give the fitness or not. It is clearly mentioned in Evan Williams' textbook that if the surgery is an emergency, hypothyroidism is not a contraindication. So if a surgeon wants to operate an urgent condition, hypothyroidism is not a contraindication, provided he has a ventilator standby, because the anesthesia will last for a longer time and there could be a bleeding tendency. So blood and blood products should be on a standby even if PT-APTT is normal. However, if the surgeon calls you and says, "Wo aaj hi TSH kiya, that is 9, and you give fitness," it is always better to tell ki wait for 15-20 days, let the TSH normalize. If your surgery is elective, I will prefer that the TSH normalizes before I give you a final fitness. Let us take a quick recap of what are the common errors that happen. Patients' tablets are not taken properly. Tablets cannot be stored properly at times, and antacid and thyroid tablets taken together, calcium and iron taken together. Remember that thyroid is morning, calcium and iron should be minimum afternoon or evening. So there should be a gap. And always remember, never tell your patient these things, because they are going to fall flat on your face. You do not have evidence for that. There is no evidence that restricting cabbage and cauliflower will help hypothyroid patients. There is nothing to say that I am treating your hypothyroidism, this will bring down your weight from 120 kgs to 100 kgs. No, a maximum 4 to 5 kgs of weight loss can happen with treating hypothyroidism. Sometimes patients are told take 1 tablet in the morning and 1 in the evening. Never do that. Even if you have to give 4 tablets, and I have patients who are 150 kgs and taking 400 power tablet, but all are given in the morning only. Do not tell the patient ki TSH is 100, I am starting with 150 microgram, you come back after 2 weeks. The TSH will not stabilize in 2 weeks. The patient will come with a TSH of 50, you make it dose from 150 to 200, next time the TSH will come down to 0. Give 6 weeks and assure and guarantee results only by thyroid treatment. Remember that infertility, urticaria, depression are all big diseases with respective specialists who are very capable of handling them. Hypothyroidism can improve their course, but may not essentially ensure that things will go all right. You tell them that your fertility prospects can be better. You tell them that your urticaria can be better, your depression can be better, but this is not the treatment of these diseases. And so give rational expectations, and always remember that every patient who has got symptoms should not be denied a thyroid test. Autoimmune thyroid disease is the commonest cause. It needs prompt recognition in pregnancy and newborn particularly, because even a day's treatment can be detrimental. Treatment favorably affects metabolism, cognition, and well-being. And especially when you are treating a senior citizen or elderly, do not start with TSH is 100, start with 100. No, start with a slower dose of 12.5 to 25, increase gradually and achieve the target. After all, remember that you are giving a treatment that is physiological. You are replacing what body does not have. You are ensuring that the patient will be normal. Do not deny thyroid screening and ensure that all deserved patients get a proper, and I think this is the most economical treatment for any disease. I thank DMA for organizing this program. I thank all of you who joined for this program, and I thank each one of you who is working hard in this pandemic. And I also thank our sponsors. Thank you everyone, and have a safe time ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Amay Joshi, for a lucid and an interesting and an exhaustive coverage of the topic which concerns each and every of us, basically. Not only general practitioners, but each and every specialty physicians, gynec surgeons, everyone is connected with thyroid in some way or the other, basically. So it was an exhaustive and coverage of the whole topic. There are a few questions which have come up. Like one of the persons has asked, how do you adjust dose of thyroxine in patient who has been overzealously treated for hyperthyroidism, basically? I mean, who has developed hyperthyroidism due to overzealous treatment? How do you adjust the dose, stop treatment, and then restart? How do you go about with that?
So if the patient is having a bad problem like arrhythmia, you stop the thyroxine at one go. If it is a mild hypothyroidism like T3, T4 is normal and TSH is low, then you slightly reduce the dose. Say from 100 you bring down to 88 or 75. And if you are landing with an urgent situation like there is a tachycardia, there is a cardiac arrhythmia, stop the tablet, let the T3, T4 normalize, and then restart. So based on the urgency, you take a call.
So every time, that means if the TSH has come down from very high to normal, and we do not need to stop the treatment.
Yes, sir. If the patient's TSH has normalized, you continue the dose because that's the patient's dosing. So if from 100 you get a level to 2, it is indication to continue. But from 100 you get a level to 0.02, you reduce the dose.
Surgical, you already mentioned that there is no need to delay the surgery in case of an emergency, and planned surgery can always be held back to bring the TSH under control. Few things I would like to ask is, from your talk, it seems that for in pregnancy, we need to have very much tight control as compared to what we as physicians do it in other patients, basically. So the TSH level, we try to bring it down to 2.5 to 3 in a pregnant lady, right? Unless what we have a cutoff of 4.5 to 5 in other adult patients. So here we need to titrate the dose much more to bring it down to 2.5 to 3.
Yes.
What about post-pregnancy? Do we still have similar titer control for a few weeks, like anything particular with respect to that?
So post-pregnancy, sir, the person becomes normal because the risk of miscarriage, the reason why we get the TSH below 3 isn't there. So you can expect a TSH till 4 as acceptable, which is a normal limit in postpartum. But what happens post-pregnancy is that there is sudden immune reconstitution. And so thyroiditis is very common postpartum. So somebody who had got hypothyroidism is likely to have thyroiditis commonly and needs 3-monthly monitoring. One common mistake is done is patient is started on treatment sometimes because thyroid disease is diagnosed in pregnancy. And yes, a good number do not need it beyond pregnancy, but the treatment is stopped without checking for antibodies. So if somebody is diagnosed in pregnancy, but post-pregnancy, if the antibodies are positive, you need to continue treatment post-pregnancy. Do not stop post-pregnancy. I think I have seen this with sometimes, because patients also stop, or I mean, it is also stopped from the consultant's end. Yeah.
One question about this thyroid antibodies. Whenever we are testing patients, do we every time get thyroid antibodies done, microsomal antibodies, TPO antibodies, every time as a protocol, as a routine?
I think Dr. Ajay Shah is here, and I also remember when we used to run the laboratory at Nair. When I was a student, we never used to get a value of antibody. We used to get a positive or a negative report. Now, when these better analyzers came, which give everything quantitatively, we get, and it helps. How strong is the antibody titer? But remember, it's a genetically qualitative trait that you have inherited. It's not, it's a quantitative also, but mainly a qualitative trait, positive or negative. Positive antibody means you need treatment and need treatment lifelong. After a few days, even if it becomes negative, at least in an adult. In children, yes, there could be cases which revert, but in adults, invariably, positive antibody do not waste patients' money by repeating the test again and again. That's for
So
sure.
that do not have much of significance in terms of treatment.
Once they are diagnosed, yes, no much significance. Yes, very true.
Any role of steroids anywhere in any of the management of hypothyroidism, thyroiditis, or anywhere else, basically the role of steroids?
Yes. Thyroiditis, it is needed in a large number of cases because of the constitutional symptoms. And the second is in hypothyroidism, we need when somebody presents with myxedema, coma, or Hashimoto's encephalopathy. When neurological symptoms mainly.
But Akshay is asking one question: when do we suspect TSH resistance, and how do we investigate it?
So TSH resistance is a genetic condition which is called as resistance to thyroid hormone. And these people will typically have a T3 and T4 that is high and a TSH also that is high. The commonest differential is that TSH resistance will not have hyperthyroid feature. The commonest differential diagnosis is TSH secreting pituitary adenoma. I remember Dr. Rajesh Gagre sir has sent one patient to me of TSH secreting pituitary adenoma, and these patients have severe hyperthyroidism, whereas TSH resistance will have high T3, high T4, high TSH, but no features of hyperthyroidism that are severe. And obviously these will have a SHBG level which is higher, whereas TSH secreting pituitary adenomas will have a lower SHBG. The second is that whenever somebody comes and you are suspecting TSH resistance, get thyroid function of all family members. You will find at least one more person like that because it's dominantly inherited many of the times.
Every time there is a hypothyroid, do we get a lipid profile done?
I think no. In fact, in a hypothyroid patient, you should normalize the thyroid function and then do a lipid profile, because sometimes you get a triglyceride of 300 or 400. And I must remember, I had seen one patient and dialyzed that patient also, because the triglyceride was 400, he was started on fenofibrate. He had got hypothyroidism and myopathy. CPK was already high. With fenofibrate, it went very high. Patient went in renal failure. So when you have hypothyroidism, normalize the thyroid and look at the lipid profile. That helps.
So there is no need at that moment to concentrate on the lipids part of it. Concentrate on thyroid part.
Yes, especially the triglyceride part of it. Yes.
So even though you mention about certain investigation more for hyperthyroidism, in short, can you give some idea regarding the use of thyroid scan, sonography, and FNAC? Even though it may be more pertinent for hyperthyroidism, but still with reference to this.
Yes. I think it is very relevant because all of us have seen a lot of thyroiditis cases nowadays. So whenever you are in a doubt about hyperthyroidism, it is better to get a scan. So when you get a hypothyroidism is not an indication of scan, but hyperthyroid patient, it is better to get a scan. Reason is that thyroiditis is picked up and you distinguish between hyperthyroid, I mean true thyrotoxicosis and thyroiditis. Second is there is a condition called as autonomously functioning thyroid nodule. So there is only one nodule in the thyroid producing extra, and that can only be picked up by scan, and these are wonderfully treated by radioactive iodine. So whenever condition permits, it is better to get a thyroid scan done in a hyperthyroid patient.
And any significance of sonography now in present era in any of the thyroid disorders basically, or only for these nodules?
Sir, all thyroid nodules, and there are certain cases where you cannot get thyroid antibody positive, but they have evidence of thyroiditis on sonography, and those also need treatment if there is subclinical hypothyroidism. Also, Graves' disease, in the pandemic situation, I realized many of the times patients were not even able to go to Malad because conveyance was a problem and all. And most of our sonologists did that extra effort to say, ki, sir, the pure gland ka vascularity is raised. There is certain appearance called as thyroid inferno. And many of our sonologists helped out in best of their capacity. I said that all of the people across specialties stood above expectations in facing the pandemic.
One last question I would like to put forward, because we are in the pandemic era of COVID. Any difference is coming up because of COVID status with respect to thyroid disorders? Like we have it for diabetes. Anything you have noticed in your practice where this COVID business has kind of accelerated or done something with respect to thyroid reports?
There has been more prevalence of thyroiditis. I must tell you that when first time I saw patients with thyroiditis, when they were sent for COVID test, because of the BMC guidelines, they were refused because there was no cough that time. Now that we can get antibodies, at least we see some patients who have got thyroid, COVID antibody also positive and thyroiditis also. They give history of cough, cold 3-4 weeks ago. And yes, there has been increase in thyroiditis, no doubt about it.
Dr. Jignesh, hand over to Dr. Vilas.
Okay, sir. I think so. No any more questions.
1 minute, sir.
So thank you, Dr. Jiten Mehta, sir, and Dr. Ameya Joshi, sir. Here I am requesting to our GSK Pharma representative to say few words. Please.
Pushpa Soni ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Pushpa Soni ma'am from GSK.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madam.
Yes. So first of all, thank you so much, sir, for giving us this opportunity to attend the session of Dr. Ameya Joshi, and we are highly grateful. As sir was saying, the session would be very simple. I think it was as simple as anyone could understand, like one of us. So especially the teacher and the student relationship. So thank you so much, sir, for making us also understand, since we deal more with Eltroxin. And thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much, madam. Now here I am requesting to our chairperson, Dr. Vilas Wade, sir, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ameya sir, for giving valuable presentation for the hypothyroidism. So you made this topic very simple, lucid language to understand all the general practitioners. So thank you once again, sir, for your presentation. I'd like to thank you all our COVID warriors for joining today's seminar in spite of the heavy schedule. And I also thanks to the GSK friend for organizing such a wonderful session. So thank you all of you once again, and stay safe and everyone, and take a responsibility for this COVID session and be confident treating our patients. So thank you, take care everybody. And thank you, sir, Ameya sir, once again, and thank you, sir, Jiten Mehta sir also.
Thank you, sir.
And at last, a few words for our DMA team. Here our DMA team is doing a very hard work to success these webinars. Team DMA is providing such a big digital platform to our DMA members as a speaker to update the knowledge of our colleagues. So if anyone is interested to take the lecture, then please contact Dr. Vinayak Desai sir or committee members of Team DMA. At last, I thanks to Team DMA and all the participants who took the active part in today's webinar series. On behalf of the Daisar Medical Association, here I am announced the end of the today webinar session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.